My dear listener, there is a soft kind of power in being alone. A power most people will never understand because they are terrified of their own company. They fill their days with noise, fill their nights with people, fill their hearts with distractions, all to avoid meeting the one person they should know most intimately, themselves. But you are different. You have walked through seasons of loneliness, nights of unanswered prayers, days where the world felt too heavy to carry, and yet here you are, still breathing, still rising, still becoming. There is a fire inside you, not the loud fire celebration, but the quiet fire of endurance, the kind that refuses to die, even when the wind is wild. And let me tell you something, being alone does not make you weak, it makes you unshakable. Because the strongest roots grow in the darkest soil, the deepest wisdom is learned in silence, and the most powerful transformation happens when nobody is watching. People fear being alone because it forces them to see their truth. But you embraced it. You walked into your storm with open arms. You met your shadows. You sat with your grief. You befriended the parts of yourself the world told you to hide. And in that quiet space, you discovered that loneliness does not break you. It builds you. You learned that you can stand without applause. You can shine without permission. You can walk alone and still walk strong. Listen to me. There is nothing more magnetic than a soul who knows how to survive their own company. Nothing more irresistible than someone who does not beg for love, cling for attention, or chase validation. You became your own home, your own safe place. Your own reminder that no matter who stays or leaves, you will rise. And if the world ever tries to make you feel small, whisper to yourself, I am built from storms that would drown others. You are not alone because you are unwanted. You are alone because you are transforming. You are growing into a person your past self prayed for. You are stepping into a destiny that requires strength, clarity, and courage. Not everyone can walk this path with you, and that's okay. Some journeys are meant to be walked with your head high, your heart steady, and your soul glowing from within. And one day, when people see the strength, the grace, the peace you carry, they will wonder where it came from. They will ask what magic you possess. They will want to taste the wisdom in your silence. But only you will know, only you will remember the lonely nights that shaped you, the quiet tears that strengthened you, the choices that isolated you, and the courage that rebuilt you. My dear listener, you may be alone right now, but you are not empty. You are full. Full of dreams, full of lessons, full of power. Walk boldly, speak softly, stand tall, and remember, a person who learns to stand alone becomes a person no storm can ever bring down. Silence is strength because it is the place where your real power is born, the place where your spirit stretches beyond noise, opinions, pressure, and expectations. In silence, you finally meet the version of yourself you keep running from. And when you meet that version, you rise with a new kind of courage. A courage that is not borrowed from the world, but grown from your own soul. Think about the moments in life when silence felt uncomfortable. Like when you walked into a room and no one said a word, and suddenly you felt the weight of your presence, or when your phone stopped buzzing, and you wondered if you were forgotten, or those nights when the world seemed asleep but your heart stayed awake, whispering truths you weren't ready to hear. These are not signs of weakness. They are signs that life is asking you to listen to yourself, because silence reveals what noise hides. Noise distracts you. Silence directs you. There is strength in the mother who sits quietly after a long, exhausting day, not complaining or shouting, but gathering her breath so she can rise again tomorrow. There is strength in the man who chooses not to respond to every insult, every provocation, because he knows that real power does not need to prove itself. There is strength in the student who sits alone in a library corner, headphones off, distractions gone, because they know greatness is built in the hours when no one is watching. Daily life is full of silent warriors, people who win battles in their hearts long before they win them in the world. Sometimes silence is the moment you stop reacting to things that once irritated you. You realize that not every comment deserves an answer. Not every opinion deserves your energy, and not every person deserves access to your emotions. You evolve, you grow, you stop being triggered. That's strength. That's maturity. That's the quiet transformation. No one applauds because no one sees it, but you feel it deeply. There is strength in silence because silence teaches you patience. Imagine waiting for a message that never came. At first, the silence hurts, it burns, it feels like rejection, but eventually, you learn something powerful. When someone's silence screams louder than their words, it reveals the truth you were refusing to accept. In that moment, silence becomes the teacher you didn't want but desperately needed. And the lesson becomes clear. You don't need to chase what isn't meant for you. That strength is earned, not gifted. Think about nature. The tallest trees grow silently. The sun rises every morning without making a sound. The universe expands without noise. Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes power simply utters this. Silence is the womb of creation. It is where ideas are born, where healing begins, where your soul resets itself. You see this in people who have suffered deeply. Some of the strongest hearts are the quietest, not because they are weak, but because they learn to carry their storms with dignity. A person who has walked through pain does not always scream their hurt. Sometimes they sit in silence, letting their resilience speak for them, and when they rise, oh, the world feels it. Silence is strength because it gives you clarity. When you sit with yourself without distractions, you finally understand what you want, what you need, what you must let go of. In silence, you see people for who they are, not who you hope they will be. In silence, you learn to trust your intuition, that whisper inside you that is often drowned out by noise. Take the example of someone going through heartbreak. At first, silence feels like loneliness, like an empty room echoing with memories. But eventually, the same silence becomes healing, the space where you breathe again, rediscover yourself, rebuild your confidence and reconnect with your worth. You begin to realize that silence wasn't punishing you, it was protecting you, guiding you, preparing you for something gentler, stronger, and more aligned. Silence is strength. When you choose not to respond to negativity, when people gossip about you, misunderstand you, accuse you, judge you, silence becomes your shield. Only a strong person can stay calm when others try to disturb their peace. Silence is not surrender. Silence is strategy. It is maturity. It is knowing that your time is too valuable, your energy too sacred, and your peace too expensive. There is strength in the silence of someone who is building. Think of the entrepreneur working quietly on their dreams while others laugh. Think of the athlete training in the early morning darkness while the world sleeps. Think of the artist sketching alone, pouring their emotions onto a page. These silent hours shape extraordinary lives. And here is the truth. Silence is not empty. Silence is full of truth, full of realization, full of answers you couldn't hear when the world was loud. Silence holds the voice of your higher self, the wisdom of your past experiences, the echo of the dreams you are meant to fulfill. When you learn to embrace silence instead of fearing it, you tap into a different level of strength, a quiet, unshakable, unstoppable strength that does not depend on applause, validation, or company. Silence teaches you to stand tall without being seen, to grow without being praised, and to evolve without being announced. And every time you return to that sacred silence, you return stronger than you left. You survived what others didn't see, and that alone makes you extraordinary. People look at you today and think they know your story, your strength, your heart, but they have no idea what it took for you to stand where you are standing. They don't know the nights you stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, whispering to yourself, just one more day. I can do this. They don't know the moments you were breaking inside while still smiling outside. They don't know the storms you walked through silently with no applause, no audience, no comforting hand to hold. But you walked anyway. You carried your pain with grace because that is who you are. A survivor wrapped in quiet courage. You survived what others didn't see because most of your battles were fought in places no one could reach. In your mind, in your heart, in the deep corners of your soul, while the world thought you were functioning normally. You were holding yourself together with small breaths and big prayers. While others assumed you were strong, you knew you were simply doing your best to not fall apart. That strength, that unspoken strength, is something only you will ever fully understand. Think about the times you cried in the shower so no one would hear you. That is a survival moment no one witnessed. Think about the days you went to school or work with a heavy heart but still showed up because you refused to give up on life. Think about the arguments you walked away from because you chose peace over pride. Knowing no one would applaud your restraint, these invisible victories are what built your character. You survived heartbreak that you told no one about. You survived disappointments that you hid behind a brave smile. You survived betrayal without seeking revenge because you believed in rising above. You survived childhood wounds, family pressure, financial stress, mental battles, all while the world continued to assume you were fine. But you were not fine. You were fighting silently. And that silence amplified your strength. Imagine a young woman who wakes up every day to a chaotic home, no support, no reassurance, yet she still goes out into the world with her head held high. People see her smile, her makeup, her confidence, but not the fear she hides under her breath. That is survival. Imagine a man who lost his job and doesn't tell anyone, but every morning he wakes up early, dresses neatly, and heads out pretending everything is okay just so his family doesn't worry. People see his discipline but not his anxiety. That is survival. Imagine a student struggling with pressure, drowning in expectations, juggling dreams and fear at the same time. They walk through hallways, looking calm, while inside they are battling self-doubt. No one sees their trembling hands at night. That too is survival. You survived moments where you wanted to give up but didn't. You survived moments where you questioned your worth but kept going. You survived moments where you felt forgotten, unappreciated, unseen, but you still chose kindness, you still chose effort, you still chose hope, you still chose life. The world sees your strength today but not the tears that watered it. The world sees your confidence but not the insecurities you fought to overcome. The world sees your discipline but not the mental wars you won alone. People admire your calmness but don't know the chaos you learned to tame. They admire your wisdom, unaware of the mistakes and heartbreaks it was born from. What you survived privately is the reason you walk with a certain kind of grace publicly. It's why you don't react the way others do. It's why you don't fear loss the way others do when you've already lived through storms without anyone holding your hand. You realize you can survive anything. You survived loneliness, the type that makes your chest heavy and your breath tight, the type that makes a crowded room feel empty. But you learn to be your own comfort. You learn to love your own company. That is survival. You survived lack of support, lack of love, lack of reassurance, and it taught you to build your own foundation. You survived silence from people you cared for, and it taught you that your worth is not tied to anyone's attention. You survived emotional pain that could have hardened you, but instead it softened you. You developed empathy, compassion, depth, qualities that are rare but priceless. You survived situations that would have broken someone else, and you survived them with dignity. And even though no one witnessed your darkest nights, your swollen eyes, your trembling hands, and your quiet prayers, those nights shaped you into someone unshakable. People see your strength but not the story. They see your glow but not the fire that forged it. They see your peace but not the wars you fought to earn it. Your private battles are the reason your soul is powerful. Your unseen victories are the reason your eyes carry wisdom. Your hidden struggles are the reason you walk with calm confidence. You survived what others didn't see, and that alone is evidence that there is something unbreakable inside you. You are unshakable because life has pushed you, bent you, tested you, and tried to break you more times than you can count. Yet here you are, standing, breathing, living, rising. You are unshakable not because you never fell, but because every time you hit the ground, you rose with something stronger inside you. Some people collapse under pressure, but you transformed pressure into power. You turned every setback into a stepping stone. You learn to walk through storms without losing your balance, and that kind of strength does not come from comfort. It comes from surviving what was meant to destroy you. You are unshakable because you have learned the art of holding yourself together when everything around you is falling apart. Think of those mornings when you woke up with a heavy heart but still chose to show up. You fixed your face, straightened your shoulders, and walked into the world like nothing was wrong. That is unshakable. Think of the nights when your chest tightened with anxiety, when your thoughts spiraled, when fear felt louder than your hope, yet you still whispered to yourself, "I've made it through worse." That is unshakable. Think of the moments when disappointment hit you so hard it could have broken your spirit, but instead you learned to bend and not break. That is unshakable. Daily life is filled with proof of your unshakable nature. Think of the mother who carries the weight of her family, tired yet determined, exhausted yet still giving everything she has. No one sees her quiet sacrifices, but she remains steady. That is unshakable. Think of the father working 3 jobs, coming home late, leaving early, wiping his sweat with one hand while lifting his dreams with the other. He rarely speaks of his challenges, but he never stops moving. That is unshakable. Think of the friend who listens to everyone's problems while silently wrestling with their own. They remain calm, supportive, and warm, even when their own world feels cold. That too is unshakable. You are unshakable because you have learned that strength is not loud. It is silent, steady and rooted. It is choosing to stay calm when others expect you to fall apart. It is choosing to breathe when every part of you wants to scream. It is choosing to keep your peace even when chaos knocks on your door. It is choosing not to react to every insult, every provocation, every dose of negativity that tries to drag you down. You have become the type of person who doesn't allow temporary storms to destroy permanent purpose. Think of the moments when someone tried to break your confidence with their harsh words, yet you held your head high and walked away because you knew your worth was not up for debate. That is unshakable. Think of the times when people disappointed you, hurt you, or left you, yet instead of collapsing, you learned to become your own anchor. That is unshakable. Think of the losses you endured, relationships, opportunities, friendships, and how each loss taught you resilience, clarity, and emotional strength. That is unshakable. You are unshakable because you no longer allow emotions to control you. You feel deeply, but you respond wisely. You have learned that true strength is not reacting quickly, but reacting consciously. When someone tries to trigger you, you stay centered. When someone tries to pull you into drama, you stay distant. When someone tries to test your patience, you choose silence instead of chaos. This level of emotional control is not taught. It is earned through pain, reflection, and growth. Think of the person at work who tries to undermine you, yet you keep showing up with excellence. You don't retaliate. You elevate. That is unshakable. Think of the friend who betrayed your trust, leaving you heartbroken, yet you refuse to let bitterness change your character. That is unshakable. Think of the family challenges you faced, misunderstandings, arguments, responsibilities, and how you learned to navigate them with maturity instead of anger. That is unshakable. You are unshakable because you have learned to shift your focus from problems to possibilities. You no longer panic at the first sign of trouble. You observe, you think, you strategize, you handle things quietly, calmly, intelligently. You became the type of person who doesn't crumble under pressure but becomes sharper, wiser, stronger. While others break down, you break through. Life has thrown storms your way. Financial struggles, emotional heartbreaks, unexpected setbacks. Yet instead of drowning, you learn to swim. You learn to float. You learn to breathe underwater. That is what makes you unshakable. You don't depend on perfect conditions to stay strong. You create strength even in chaos. You create peace even in noise. You create hope even in darkness. Think of the student who failed an exam but refused to quit, studied harder and came back stronger. That is unshakable. Think of the person who was rejected from their dream job but used the rejection as fuel to build something better. That is unshakable. Think of the individual healing from trauma, slowly, painfully, bravely, choosing growth over bitterness. That is unshakable. You are unshakable because you have realized that the world cannot take from you what you have built within yourself. Your strength is internal, not external. It does not depend on who stays or who leaves, on what you gain or what you lose. Your strength comes from the core of your soul, a place untouched by doubt, untouched by fear, untouched by failure. You are unshakable because you have become the person who knows that no matter what happens, you will rise again, you will rebuild again, you will shine again. You no longer chase validation because you finally realize that your worth was never supposed to be measured by someone else's approval. You learn that applause is temporary, opinions are fragile, and people's acceptance shifts like the wind. What truly matters is the voice inside you, the voice that once whispered but now speaks loudly enough to guide your entire life. You no longer chase validation because you discovered that peace feels better than being liked, and self-respect feels better than fitting into places that were never meant for you. There was a time when you gave too much of yourself just to hear a simple well done. You twisted your personality, softened your voice, dimmed your light, and shaped your character into whatever made others comfortable. You dressed for them, spoke for them, lived for them, but with time, growth, and heartbreak, you learn something powerful. The people you seek validation from are often the ones who don't understand your value at all, and those who do understand it never require you to prove anything. You no longer chase validation because you now know that confidence comes from within. Think about the moments when you posted something on social media and kept checking who liked it. That version of you felt anxious, insecure, hungry for acknowledgement. But today you post for yourself, not for approval. You express yourself without questions, without fear, without waiting for reactions. That shift, that quiet freedom, is what it means to stop chasing validation. Daily life is full of examples of this transformation. Think of the woman who spent years seeking her partner's appreciation, hoping he'd notice her efforts, the cooking, the care, the emotional labor. When he didn't, she once blamed herself. But one day she realized she didn't need someone clapping for her to know she was valuable. She stepped into her own power, stopped begging for attention, and built her life on self-respect. That is what it looks like to stop chasing validation. Think of the student who kept waiting for their parents' approval, always trying to be perfect. The pressure was heavy, the fear of disappointment was real, but eventually that student realized that their happiness was more important than meeting expectations that were never theirs to begin with. They chose their own dream, followed their own passion, and let validation come from achievement, not acceptance. That is not rebellion, that is independence. Think of the worker who kept sacrificing personal time just to impress their boss, believing that overworking would earn them praise. But praise never came. Instead, exhaustion did. One day, that worker decided to put boundaries in place, valuing their own well-being above someone else's approval. The boss didn't clap, but their soul did. That is what growth looks like. You no longer chase validation because you learn that people see you based on their vision, not your truth. Some will underestimate you, some will misunderstand you, some will judge you, but that has nothing to do with your worth. You stop letting opinions shape your identity. You stopped allowing criticism to break you. You stopped shrinking yourself to be acceptable. You no longer need the world to tell you who you are. You already know there is power in walking into a room without hoping anyone notices you. There is power in speaking without checking if people agree. There is power in choosing solitude over fake company, choosing authenticity over popularity, choosing peace over attention. You realize that validation tied to others is unstable, but validation tied to self-awareness is unshakable. Think of the person who once asked everyone for advice before making a decision. They feared being wrong, they feared being judged, but with time, they learned to trust their own instincts. They stopped needing a crowd to tell them what the right choice was. They listened to their intuition, and suddenly life started aligning. This is the beauty of self-validation. You no longer chase validation, because you finally understand the difference between being valued and being seen. Many people can see you, but very few can truly value you. And the ones who value you do so without you trying. You don't need to entertain them. You don't need to impress them. You don't need to adjust your personality to fit their expectations. You don't need to perform. You became the kind of person who walks away from places where you feel you must earn love. You stopped explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stopped proving your worth to those who were blind to it. You stopped giving discounts on your character just to be accepted in cheap rooms. Your energy became selective. Your company became intentional. Your voice became stronger, softer, wiser. All at the same time. Think of the young man who used to dress a certain way just to fit into his friend circle. He believed that changing himself would keep him accepted. But when he finally embraced his own identity, he found people who admired him for who he truly was. That is what happens when you stop chasing validation. Your tribe finds you naturally. Think of the woman who used to overdo kindness just to be liked. She never said no. She tolerated disrespect. She allowed people to walk over her. But one day she realized she didn't need anyone's approval to set boundaries. Now she says no with confidence, not guilt. She speaks with clarity, not fear. She loves herself enough to choose what is right for her. That is strength. You no longer chase validation because you learn the art of being whole alone. You realize that your value does not increase when someone claps, nor does it decrease when someone criticizes. You realize that sometimes the world will misunderstand your silence, your growth, your ambition, your boundaries, and that misunderstanding is none of your business. You are living for meaning, not applause, for purpose, not popularity, for authenticity, not attention. You stop chasing validation the moment you realized you were enough, more than enough, without anyone's approval. Loneliness is transformation, because it is in those quiet, empty spaces of your life that you begin to meet the real version of yourself, the version that is not shaped by people's expectations, not influenced by noise, not pressured by the world. Loneliness takes you inward, and that journey inward is where transformation begins. Most people fear being alone because silence forces them to confront the truth, but you learned that truth is the birthplace of power. Loneliness is not a punishment, it is preparation. It is the space where you shed the old, reshape the broken, relearn your worth, and step into the person you are meant to become. There are times in life where everyone seems to move forward except you. Friends get busy, relationships fade, family becomes distant, and suddenly you're sitting with yourself, wondering why life placed you in an isolated corner. But with time, you realize that loneliness is not a sign that you are losing people. It is a sign that you are finding yourself. You begin to understand your own thoughts, desires, fears, and dreams. You begin to see what truly matters. You begin to see who you are without external influence. That clarity is transformation. Think of the young woman who once filled her days with social gatherings, phone calls, and people just to avoid being alone. She thought loneliness meant something was wrong with her. But then life shifted. Friendships ended, priorities changed, and she suddenly had more time with herself. In those quiet moments, she discovered her passions, her values, and her strength. She learned that she doesn't need company to feel complete. She learned that her own presence is powerful. That is transformation born from loneliness. Think of the man who went through heartbreak so painful it left him feeling alone in a room full of people. He wondered why he wasn't enough, why love left him, why silence replaced what was once familiar. But instead of staying broken, he used loneliness as a mirror. He recognized his patterns, healed his wounds, and rebuilt his confidence. He realized that loneliness was not the end of love. It was the beginning of self-love. That is transformation. Loneliness is transformation because it gives you space to grow without being watched. When you are alone, you stop performing, you stop pretending, you stop trying to fit into places that shrink your soul. Loneliness gives you the freedom to expand. You begin to remove the layers you put on to survive. You begin to treat yourself with kindness. You begin to reconnect with your intuition, that small inner voice that gets louder when the world grows quiet. You learn that solitude is the soil where powerful humans grow. There are daily life moments that reveal how loneliness transforms you. Think of the person who moved to a new city alone. At first, the silence feels suffocating. They miss familiar faces and comforting routines, but over time, they become independent, confident, and bold. They make decisions without seeking approval. They discover new strengths. They create a new identity. That transformation happened because loneliness pushed them into becoming self-reliant. Think of the students studying late at night, surrounded by books, feeling the weight of dreams and expectations. In those lonely hours, they develop discipline, vision, and resilience. No friend, no teacher, no crowd witnesses that transformation, but it happens. Loneliness becomes a training ground for greatness. Think of the single mother raising her children alone, carrying burdens silently. She has moments where loneliness breaks her, but those same moments teach her how powerful she truly is. She becomes a warrior made from endurance and love. Her transformation is carved from quiet battles only she knows. Loneliness is transformation when you realize that being alone does not mean you are lacking something. It means you are learning something. You begin to see people clearly. Loneliness teaches you who is genuine and who is present only for convenience. You start recognizing the difference between company and connection. You understand that some people leave not because you are unworthy, but because your journey requires a different kind of energy. You begin to value your time more. You become selective with your circle. You stop tolerating half-hearted love, unbalanced friendships, and inconsistent energy. You realize that your peace is not negotiable. That shift, that inner awakening is part of the transformation. Loneliness also transforms your mindset. When you sit with yourself long enough, you begin to silence the fear that once controlled you. You start trusting your decisions. You start dreaming bigger without fearing judgment. You start understanding your emotions instead of running from them. You begin to master the art of being alone without feeling lonely. You realize that solitude is peace, not emptiness. And the most profound transformation happens when loneliness becomes empowerment. Instead of craving attention, you begin to crave alignment. Instead of chasing people, you begin to chase purpose. Instead of waiting to be chosen, you choose yourself. You begin attracting different things because you have become a different person. You stop settling. You stop shrinking. You stop living for others. Loneliness Loneliness teaches you to live for yourself. Transformation is not loud. It doesn't happen in front of an audience. It happens in the quiet nights when tears fall onto pillows no one sees. It happens in the early mornings when you push yourself to rise, even though your heart is tired. It happens in the moments when you choose growth over comfort, healing over hurt, clarity over confusion. It happens in the silence between who you used to be and who you are becoming. Loneliness is transformation because it strips you down to your essence. It forces you to face the lessons you avoided. It gives you time to heal wounds you ignored. It shows you the power you forgot you had. It reminds you that you are not alone. You are evolving. It reveals that every period of isolation is actually a season of becoming a stronger, wiser, more authentic version of yourself. When you reach this point in your journey, after the silence, after the battles no one witnessed, after the loneliness that shaped you, something powerful happens inside you. You begin to see your own story through a new lens. You realize that you are never falling apart. You are falling into place. Every scar became a sentence in your strength. Every heartbreak became a paragraph of your wisdom. Every lonely night became a chapter in your transformation. And now, as you stand at the edge of your becoming, you can feel it. The rise, the glow, the awakening. The version of you who was once afraid is gone. The version of you who doubted is gone. You have returned to yourself, stronger than you have ever been. You are the living proof that storms do not break you, they uncover you, they peel away the parts of you that were never meant to stay and reveal the parts that were always meant to lead. You are the kind of soul that life tried to dim, but you turned darkness into fire. You are the kind of heart that people tried to underestimate, but you turned hurt into greatness. And now your presence carries a different kind of power, a calm power, a quiet power, a power that doesn't need validation, applause, or permission. A power that speaks before you speak. So stand tall because you earned your height. Walk boldly because you survived your storms. Let the world see the version of you that your pain created, the version that knows peace, that honors boundaries, that defends its worth, that never begs for love, that no longer settles for half-hearted anything. You are not the same person you were before the silence. You are not the same person you were before the loneliness. You are not the same person you were before the breaking. You have evolved. You have expanded. You have become unstoppable. And if there is one truth you must carry from this moment forward, it is this. What the hero you were waiting for. Not them, not the world, not the ones who left, not the ones who doubted, not the ones who never saw your worth. You saved yourself, you lifted yourself, you rebuilt yourself, you healed yourself, you walked through hell and still came back with heaven in your eyes. That is what makes you extraordinary. Every great story has a turning point, and this right now is yours. The moment you stop asking, why did this happen to me, and start saying, this happened for me. The moment you stop clinging to what left and start welcoming what's coming. The moment you stop blaming the past and start building the future. The moment you realize you are no longer the wounded version, but the warrior version. You have become the person who doesn't fear endings because you've learned how to create new beginnings. You have become the person who doesn't fear solitude because you've learned how to make friends with your soul. You have become the person who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't break, because now you know that what is meant for you will recognize you by the strength of your energy. You attract differently now because you have become different. And when the world looks at you, your confidence, your grace, your quiet power, they will wonder where it came from. But only you will know the truth. You will know it came from long silent battles, from nights soaked in tears, from the courage to let go, from the bravery to stand alone, from the decision to choose yourself even when it hurt. You will know it came from remembering who you are. So step forward with that fire in your chest. Step forward with that wisdom in your eyes. Step forward with that unshakable strength in your bones. And if the world ever tries to doubt you again, remind yourself with the kind of dialogue that shakes mountains. I bend, but I do not break. I fall, but I rise higher. I walk alone, but I walk strong. I am built from storms that others never survived. I am not afraid of the dark. I learned to glow in it. I am not what happened to me. I am what I became because of it. This is your moment. This is your rise. This is your transformation in its purest, loudest, brightest form. And it is only the beginning.